Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Corey the Joy, driver of the 7 Chevy Camaro, joined by the usual band of characters, but we upgraded one. Chuck,
We did.
how was your weekend?
It was good. Watched some racing. It's fun.
So did I.
Yeah.
Front tire changer for Ryan Blaney, Ryan Flores.
Did some racing. Watched a fight.
Oh, we're going to talk about your Stafford experience as well. And then we
Is that the fight, Stafford?
I got in a wreck,
fight.
and the guys that I wrecked with were fighting each other. It was amazing.
Oh,
and obviously the voice that you hear sounds way better and has way better racing stories than Merriman. Mr. Kyle Petty.
No,
joining
thanks for
Stack
having
of
me,
Pain.
man. So I'm taking Merriman's place?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
my gosh, man.
It's
Man.
a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a step down, though, from Merriman, man.
No.
He's a piece. He's a piece of work. Is
He-
he still
Piece of something.
Is he
He's a
still a
piece.
Chase Elliott guy?
He's a piece. He's
Is
a
he-
big Rusty Wallace guy.
Big, big Rusty
Yeah.
Wallace.
Yeah.
Which that explains everything right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anybody says, "Oh, pull flat 2-car, Rusty Wallace." No,
Uh-huh.
sorry.
Yeah.
Conversation over. Let's move on.
Yeah, Merriman's the biggest Rusty Wallace fan.
I
No,
mean-
that's actually we're giving him shit.
Hates Rusty Wallace.
Oh, okay, that's good then. See, now he's back on my side again.
Well, thank you for joining the show, buddy. I
Yep.
was on you with Motor Mouse on NBC.
Yes, you were. Did a great job. Great job.
Appreciate that. Having some fun breaking into that world. But you, sir, are the celebrity here because you are on a world book tour.
Book tour.
You said you were popping in Barnes and Nobles.
So I've been
Books a
going
Million?
to Books a Million, Barnes and Noble, in the where we at? Huntersville, Davidson, Charlotte, Pineville. So I walk in, I find the book that looks like me on the cover. Okay, and then I autograph it and I put it back on the shelf and I leave and I don't tell anybody. I've been waiting for an employee to bust me and say, whoa, what are you doing writing in that book? So that hadn't happened yet. So I've gone to like 5 or 6 so far.
Can you just give people some hints? So if they wanted to go to a store in
Yep.
that area?
There's the one in Matthews, which is at the Arboretum. One at the Arboretum. There's one in what's that place up there? Exit 28. Is that Huntersville? It's in
Burkdale.
Yeah, Burkdale.
Yep.
Burkdale. See,
Yeah, there's
I'm not
Barnes
cool,
and-
man. I
there's
don't
a
know
Barnes
that.
and Nobles up there.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
there's
man,
one
I'm
up
going to
there.
go find that. Bring
Yeah,
my kids there.
As
It's
soon
up
as we
there.
leave here today, I'm going. to get
Gastonia, I
those.
went to Books a Million. So that was pretty cool. I went to the Park Road Books, which
Yeah.
is an independent
Yeah,
bookstore.
yeah.
They were already signed. Somebody beat me there.
Oh,
I don't know what the deal was.
Somebody signed your name on yours?
No, well, I signed like 5,000 of them forever ago and sent them back. And I walk in to Park Road and they're like, an autograph. So I'm like, why'd I even stop by here?
I will plug Park Road Books because
That's a great
I
bookstore.
grew up with the owners.
Oh,
They
no
lived
way.
down the street from us.
So let me tell you. So we're rabbit hole. So
I love it.
Fry Gilliard
Yeah.
was a writer from here. He's a professor at the University of Mississippi now. And he's a writer in residence. He wrote a book about Felix and I back in '92, and I signed autographs and Fry and I did an autograph session at Park Road
Yeah.
Book in '92, 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I was sitting at that place signing autographs.
Well, on the back cover here, you got some pretty well-known names.
I had to pay those people.
Did you?
No,
Couple
I'm kidding.
bucks. Now the one I'm interested here is from the Nature Boy, Ric
Oh,
Flair.
yes.
For a guy that could be a prick because of who he is, he's just the greatest, most down-to-earth person I've ever met, just like his dad. You got to read Kyle's book. You heard it there, folks.
That's right.
Rick Nature Boy Flair signed off on Swerve or Die. Where'd Swerve or Die come from?
So Swerve or Die, if you read the book, obviously I grew up in a racing family, just like you. I think people think, and I'm sure you get this, people think you grow up in a racing family, you just one day say, I want to race, and your dad gives you a race car and says, see you later, bud. You're going to be the superstar.
Right.
And that's not the way it is. Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm sure it's not. I know it's not the way it was with you. It's not the way it was with me. My dad said you got to work in the body shop, you got to work in the engine shop for a year, you got to be a mechanic, you got to be a fabricator. You had to work in each place for about a year. I coughed up petty blue paint and Bondos for I go play basketball and hark up a blue loogie, you know what I mean? A petty blue loogie on the court. So, but when I was 14, my uncle was killed at Talladega in a pit road accident. I grew up at a time when you used to go to the racetrack like your kids, but you used to go to the racetrack and you'd be playing with a bunch of kids and their mom would come and get them and you'd never see those kids again because their dad had been killed. Or something tragic had happened, and it's just, and you don't realize it at the time when you're 7 or 8, but you realize it when you're 12 or 13. And then when Randy got killed, on pit road, that was a big deal. And then Adam, and there's other things in there, but there's funny stories too. But the Swerve or Die came from, as we talked about, we wanted a title that would just make people go, wow, man, I got to read this. You know, what is that? But it's basically just like all race car drivers' lives. You head down a highway and all of a sudden there's a roadblock and you swerve. You don't just stop and die at that moment. You don't just stop and say, I'm never going to be a race car driver. I'm never going to do this. I got to go in a different direction. I got to find a different path in life. I got to do something different. So that's kind of what that part's about. The last chapter is about NASCAR, what society is right now with inclusion, diversity, and how they've embraced it, the new car, so many things that the sport over a 70-plus year period has been able to change for whatever society needed it to be, whatever corporate America wanted it to be, and whatever we perceived it to be. It's been able to swerve and continue to live and continue to move forward. And you look at the sport in its totality, you know what I mean, and the sport itself, and it just continues to be whatever it needs to be during that period of time to be successful.
What's the time frame of which you obviously it's from the time you were a kid to right now, but from the time you put a pen to paper the first key strike?
I don't know. When the pandemic started? Probably about a month
March
or two after.
2020.
Yeah, probably about a month or so after the pandemic.
So you're like, I'm sitting here at home. You know what?
I got nothing.
I'm going to write a book.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Okay, so I play music. I play guitar. And you can catch me in some bars every now and then. You know, they give beer money. That's about all I make off of it. But it's fun. You know, it's fun. So I get up every morning at 5:30, and I play guitar and I write music because I got kids. You know, I mean, that's the only time you have to be by yourself. Mm-hmm. And one day I decided, you know what? I'm going to write some stuff down. Like when I hauled that beer out of Texas, and like when I flew that Concorde around the world and did crazy stuff. But so I started writing it, and I showed it to my wife, Morgan, and she said, that's pretty cool. But you don't know how to spell, and there's no punctuation in this whole page. You know what I mean? Because that's the way I write. It's just one run-on sentence that's like a mile long. So I got with Ellis, and he kind of started to put it together, and I'd send him stuff and he'd send me stuff, and I didn't go anywhere because Morgan was pregnant with our second child, with Cotton. So we didn't leave the house because no one knew what COVID did with pregnant women, and how it would affect them. So it was just a process. So it took a couple of years. Honestly, it took a good year and a half to get it all put down and then get it in order and get it in a form where you could say, okay, it's kind of a book, you know, more so than, you know, a propaganda pamphlet.
What's having your dad read a book that you wrote mean to you?
So here's what my dad said. So he read the first 2 chapters and he said, wish you'd let me read this first. There's so many mistakes in it. And I'm like, that's my dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, but that's his dad. I remember coming home from Dover when 75, 76, right along in there. And I was on my dad's pit crew, and my granddad met us out there, and he looked straight at my dad and he said, what happened? And my dad said, what do you mean what happened? And he said, what happened? What happened up there? And my dad said, we won. And Dale was standing there, Inman, and Inman says, we won by 6 laps. They won the race by like 6 or 7 laps. And my granddad said, could have won by 8. Could have won by 8, should have. Yeah. And he walked back in the house. End of the conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you didn't do enough. You know, it wasn't enough. But it was pretty cool. He read it, and he was like, yeah, that's pretty much spot on. Most of that stuff's spot on.
So let me reel it back in, and everybody go pick up Swerve or Die. If you go to the Books A Million in Birkdale or Barnes & Noble in Birkdale, there's a good chance you can find a personalized version of Swerve or Die from Kyle Petty himself. But and I'm sure you've answered this question tirelessly, but you know, there is a interesting dynamic of when and yours is probably the most interesting because your dad is the king, right? There's like 2-time Busch Series champion Randy LaJoie is a dad. There is Dave Blaney as a dad. There's 14-time most popular driver Bill Elliott as a dad. But then there is Richard Petty. So how was it just as when you were an active competitor, just always being compared to by whether it be people in the industry or fans? And I'm going the direction of this. Stacking Pennies comes from finding those small victories you can quantify that somebody else might not notice to keep yourself motivated every week, right? Because this thing will kick you in the each and every week more often than not. So you have to figure out ways to keep yourself motivated.
Yep.
And you made a hell of a career of it. Continue to.
Yeah.
With the odds probably stacked more against you than they were for you.
Yeah, I don't know. I never really. I'll say this: I never really paid attention to that he was Richard Petty. Okay, I always referred to him as the king. As the king. I just grew up. Once I started working at the shop at 12 years old, I referred to my father as the king for the rest of my life. Until I got married to Morgan, and she said, "You will not refer to your dad as the king. You will call him Dad." Because that's what the guys at the shop called him.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be the guy at the shop. I wanted to be a fabricator, man. I loved fabricating. I love welding. I go to the old shop every now and then, once every couple of months, and just sit at a welding table and weld, just so that I can never know when it's going to come in handy again. You know what I mean?
I could have used you. I'm building a street stock for Wilkesboro.
There you go, man.
Should have called you up.
So listen, they taught me how to weld when I was 12 because Chrysler had a kit car program, and basically they needed someone to weld the roll bars up inside the car, and the adults wouldn't get in the car and get burnt, and I was willing to get in and lay there in that leather jacket and all that stuff. But so it was. I've said this before. If you, Corey, could have my grandfather sit here and my father sit here, and me sit there and Adam sit over there, and you ask each one of us the same question, and each one of us the same question again, and each one you would, if after 4 or 5 questions, you would say these guys don't even know each other. These guys, their personalities are different. They're different people. They're just totally different. So when I went into it, I didn't try to be. I always wanted to be like Richard Petty, but I never wanted to be Richard Petty. And there's a difference. You know what I mean? And listen, I'm sure you are the same. You watched your dad race. You watched him work his guts out. For everything that he got, and whether he was running 5th, whether he was running 50th, or whether he was 5 laps ahead, you were just as proud of him. Yeah. Everything he did. Yeah. And every time you talk about stacking pennies, every time you come away from that race, if you learn something and you take something, there's a positive in everything. There's a positive. You can be 20 laps down. There's a positive. You look, it's like, dang, man, right before I knocked the crap out of that wall, I found something. Yeah. I found something. You know what I mean? Yeah, I found something, dude. And that's the way it is. And that's what you have to do. And I had the advantage, and I will say, and I told this to somebody the other day, I had the advantage going in that he had won 7 championships and 200 races. Okay. So I stood there and looked around the garage area, and I wasn't the only one that hadn't won 7 championships and 200 races. Yeah. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people that came before me and a lot of people that are going to come behind me that are never going to do that. So it's not, I never looked at it that way. You know what I mean? And it's the same old thing, man. It's the only dad you've got. It's the only guy you've got to compare it to. He was just the king. That's all he is.
Let's shift gears, shall we, Chuck? Interesting factoid of the weekend. KP's take on everything is about as straightforward as you can get, and he tells it like it is. I fired it off in the group chat. Scott Dixon and Kevin Harvick both won their first race in 2001.
Wow.
Those guys both, Scott Dixon in Nashville, Kevin Harvick in Michigan this weekend, over 20 years from their initial win as a rookie to their current win, the span of 20 years. I wanted to hear from you how impressive that is to sustain that level of greatness.
Yeah. And in this day and time, it's incredible. It truly is. To stay relevant in this sport for 20 years, to stay because we see, I can go back to my dad and Pearson and Cale and all those guys. And they were kicking butt and taking names in 64. And they were still doing it in 84. And they were still doing it in 89. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I mean, they really were. A lot of those guys were still winning races 20 and 30 years later. But at the same time, they were 52 and 53 years old. Mm-hmm. Because that's where you drove. They didn't start until later, so they drove later into life. And now you've got guys that they're going to retire in their early 40s. They're going to walk away. We heard the Martin Truex talk. We've seen other drivers. You're going to have to walk away. And you're going to walk away because somewhere when you turn 37, there's a 13-year-old that's got your name, that you're in his sights, because he's going to be 16 and he's going to take your ride. Sorry, that's just the nature of the sport we live in right now. But when you look at a guy, Mark Martin will always stand as a god, okay, for a guy who any age, anywhere, anytime, any place could jump in a cup car and kick your butt 6 ways from Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
And he was the guy. You know what I mean? Never won a championship, and I don't give a rat's ass whether he ever did win it. Would win a championship. He is one of the greatest race car drivers to ever sit in a car. And you look at that and you think, how do they keep that level of focus, that level of intensity, that physical ability? It's like they plateau, but they don't go down. And a lot of drivers, listen, I went like this and then fell off the backside. Most drivers do. They hit a peak and then they come down.
Is that when courage starts to taper a bit? Like, what do you think that is?
So here's what I think, and I think, and you know this because driving a race car now, and drivers understand this, is, and I look at golfers and I compare some things to golf, to a putt. There's a feel to a putt. You look at it, you see how it breaks. And there's a feel in your hands when you putt. When you drive a race car, there's a feel.
Yeah.
There's a feel that you're looking for, and only you know what that feel is.
Yeah.
And your job is to translate how that feels to that guy so he can give you that feel.
Yeah.
There's a point in a driver's career where they get confused or they lose that feel and they don't know where it's at. And then they start searching, and they run 3 links, and they run stupid front end settings, and they do all this stuff, and they're looking for it. But where's it at? I know it's out there somewhere. I got to find it. And you see their career do this because they've got away from their basics. What fascinates me about Kevin is that Kevin's been able to do it in 3 or 4 different generations of cars, with different tires, with different crew chiefs, with so many different things. So that I think that's what I don't think it's a courage thing. And I really don't, because listen, I did a deal with David Pearson one time.
That's my all-time favorite, by the way.
Oh, he was a god, man. So I did an interview with him, and probably about 4 or 5 years before he passed away. And I said, "Let me ask you a question, David." I said, "We go to Darlington," and I said, it's Tony, it's Jimmy, it's Jeff, it's all these guys, and they're all the same age. They're all 32 years old. You're 32 years old. And I said, "Do you think you could run with him?" And he never skipped a beat. He said, "Could I run with him? It's not the question. Could they run with me?"
Yes.
That's the question.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And he's like, and then he looked straight at me. He said, "I could beat him for 5 laps today. Today, I could beat him for 5 laps." And I'm like, "You are the man." You know what I mean? And he was, and you look in his eyes.
And you believe it.
You believe it.
Hell yeah.
He had me believe it because he believed it. He believed it. And they are those guys were so mentally tough and so mentally focused.
Because I bet if they put him in a 1971 Plymouth Mercury, he would smoke their ass.
He would for sure smoke them on bias plies with that old Mercury, man. But it was crazy. But that's an attitude, and that's not courage. That's confidence.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? That's not – he is so confident in who he is. And I think that's what Kevin has. That's what Mark has. It's not that you lose that. You lose that confidence a little bit that, can I do this? Will I make it over that hump?
Go ahead, Chuck.
No, I think there's a great question to ask you that Corey asked Denny last week, because you know, like, there's not many people left in the sport that know the guys today, and that also had a personal relationship with David Pearson and raced through that whole deal. When did you see a tangible shift in the way that guys race each other? Has it been gradual from going to the track as a kid, watching your dad, to how do we get from there to a place like Indy last week where everybody just piles in the corner? And how was that?
Or the 15 car stays out, tries to get a little track position, and gets run all over.
Yeah.
Right? Because nobody's really showing the guy respect.
That's right. You're my man right there. There you go.
You can lift. You don't have to run over the
I've heard 16 guys say he shouldn't have been up there. Yes, he should. Okay?
He's got every right to stay up there, too.
You shouldn't have run over him.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have put the bumper to him and got him sideways. It's everybody else it's the haves running over the have-nots. And in all honesty, you know what I mean? It's those guys saying, I don't respect your ability. I don't respect your equipment. You don't need to be out here on the racetrack, so we're going to show you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they all got torn up, and good for it. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at it, because they brought that on themselves. But here's what happened, and this is a looking at the sport. You had Pearson and Bobby and Donnie and Cale and Leroy and my dad and all these guys, okay? And there were 7 or 8 of them. 7 or 8 of them. That's all you had. And there were only 6 or 7 good cars. And then you had another group of Buddy Arrington and John Sears and Cecil Gordon and Raymond Williams. There were a lot of them. They were the next guys. Now, these guys could run 7th or 8th because these guys are going to break and fall out. You know what I mean? Because the stuff broke then. I don't know if people remember when cars actually broke, but stuff broke. So these guys, all they had to do was run all day, and they may be 15 laps down, but they're going to have a 6th place finish. You know what I mean? When you look at that stuff. But these guys had a tremendous amount of respect for each other. Richard Petty knew Bobby Allison could drive the wheels off of a car. Bobby Allison knew David Pearson could. And the other thing was, you had the Wood brothers and you had Pierce. You had these guys. They only had 1 car. They only had 2 cars at most.
Yeah.
You know, once we get into the 70s, you only had. So I don't want to be the guy that tears up the Wood brothers' car, that crashes Pearson. So you just stayed away from each other. You don't see guys wrecking like you do.
Do you think that once we lost Dale at Daytona, mandatory head and neck restraints, full containment seats, do you think the trajectory of how safe the sport became, not losing anybody after Dale, knock on wood, coincided with because you didn't worry about backing somebody in the fence and potentially not seeing that guy walk out?
So here's the thing. So then now if we jump forward that far, now you've got kids that learn to drive on video games to some degree. So they didn't, you know, I've spent as much time playing, you know, Pac-Man or whatever this game, whatever iRacing. I've spent as much time on iRacing, you know what I mean, as I have in a car. So they've not backed it in the wall at Hickory. They've not been spun out and been punched through a window net at Hickory. You know what I mean? You want to talk about fight? They just didn't. You know what I mean? And so they're and then they watch, and the problem is that they hear boys have at it. They hear rubbing is racing. They hear, you know,
you got to win to make the playoffs. You got to win.
Yeah, that's it. They hear all this stuff, and it's hammered into their head, and you can't bring it back out. You know what I mean? And I will say this, and this is going to be, I watch you guys race, and there is a total lack of respect for equipment. Okay? I mean, hell, they'll just run into you and never think twice about it. They're not expecting your equipment or their equipment because A, they know they're not going to get hurt. B, they know these cars will bounce off of each other.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And C, they know the fans are going to love it. So I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? I'm okay with it. You know, if you go back and watch racing and watch your dad race. I mean, put a bumper to somebody and get him out, but then you'd let him catch it and then racing.
Well, just don't watch him race Buckshot Jones, though.
Okay. But the point was, even Jack Ingram and those guys that your dad raced against, that we all raced against, they'd get you out of shape, but then they'd race you.
Well, there's an art to moving somebody.
There is,
too.
and that art is lost.
Yeah.
You know
is any of it the garage police itself? So if you got to answer to David Pearson, Richard Petty, or you got to answer to Dale Earnhardt. Hell, you got to answer to Terry Labonte or Ricky Rudd.
They're going to come talk to you.
That's different than answering to Will Byron and Alex Bowman.
Or a tweet.
Correct.
I say this all the time. How many times you think my dad got home and said, I really need to call Cale and apologize. I'm going to have to. Hey, Cale, man, I am so sorry.
Let me spin this phone booth.
I am so sorry I got into you, man. But, you know, I got the trophy and the money, bud. You know, I mean, you don't don't apologize, dude. You have one job when you go to the racetrack, and that's to absolutely put your foot on their throat and choke them. And it's not to go out to dinner with them. It's not to be friends with them. I'm sorry. You know what I mean?
You're not wrong.
And it's just not. I can't. I don't understand the mentality that some of the drivers have, and I'm not saying it's you, but I'm going to say some of the drivers, and hell, it may be you. But
hit me with it. What you got?
no, but so I grew up, and as I had this the other day. I grew up this way. Okay, you didn't become friends with drivers because they might get killed, and then how are you going to react? Can you drive just as hard when your best friend doesn't drive anymore if you've lost him? So you don't become friends with him. Okay, you don't become friends with him because if you are friends with him, you'll let him live. You won't lap him. You'll ride up behind him. You won't race him the way you would race somebody else. And the thing is if I know that I'm playing in the good guys golf tournament on Tuesday and you're in my foursome, chances are I'm not going to force the issue. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to hear your crap all day long.
Right.
When we play golf.
We're cart mates.
Yeah, we're cart mates. I don't want to hear your crap all day.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's that line that and the bus lot has done a lot.
I was going to ask you.
The bus lot has done a lot of that because it puts everybody on top of each other.
Well, and your wives are hanging out, and kiddos are playing on the playground.
That's right. Listen, and it's the same old thing, but it's just not.
Hey, can I ask you this?
Yeah.
Is it a bad thing the way people race right now?
No, it's not a bad thing.
Okay.
No, it's not a bad
so
thing.
Big
Hold
fan
on.
of Ross Chastain?
Yeah, it's not. It's just different.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's different. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying this is where you started the question, and when did some of this stuff change?
Yeah.
It started changing for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
You can't point at Dale Earnhardt and say Dale Earnhardt changed the sport. No, he didn't. A lot of other guys changed the sport too. You know what I mean? He may have started some of it, but that's the way it is. What do you got?
Well, when you talk about you have to have the mentality of go out there and you got to stand on their throat.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to have the respect for their equipment.
Yeah.
Like, how do you find that balance?
So,
and how do these younger guys find that balance?
So the thing is, and I will say this till the day I die: beating somebody and wrecking somebody are two totally different things. Okay, just is. All right. So and I said this to I love Joey Logano. Okay.
Yeah.
But he didn't even try to pass William Byron at Darlington.
But
Didn't even try.
But will Byron run him in the fence?
Run him in the fence.
See, this is where you guys are BS.
So no, let me.
No.
That's
BS.
No.
When did he run him in the fence?
So this is what this is the way I see this. This is the way I see this.
Okay.
Joey picked the top. He was the leader. He was a control car. He picked the top. It might be his
you're
mistake.
out of the conversation because you work for that team.
It might be
you're
his
out of the
mistake.
conversation. You're out of the conversation because you work for that team.
I get it, but if you pick the top there, you are trusting that the guy underneath you is going to race you clean off a two.
Now, listen, you're not trusting. Okay,
I'm with you.
My whole point is you have to be on guard at all times.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to, and it's your job to protect your car.
Yeah.
It's not my job to save your ass when you put yourself in a bad situation.
Fair enough.
Not my friggin' job, dude.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm
top.
sorry. So Joey put himself in a bad situation to get run in the wall in the first place, as far as I'm concerned. Now that's an old school way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's an old school way. You don't. So Jack Ingram had this thing. I'm here. You cut me off. I'm here. You cut me off. I'm here. You're in the wall.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. 3 and done.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But you knew that. You knew that because that's the way he always raced. So I look at this and I look at some things and y'all look at it totally different than I look at it. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. You'll argue that side. And I understand that because that's the way y'all race today. But that's not the way they raced then. And that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. That's not the way. If Joey had one race car, and he knew he had to run that thing next week, he wouldn't have stuffed it on the outside and got run in the wall.
Good thing he's got 8 more.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a good thing they had one for every race and 6 spares when they used to build 9 million cars.
Yeah.
And you and your team only had 6.
Right.
You have to race totally different.
Correct.
Sorry, you just do. So if NASCAR come in and said, you get one short track car, you get one intermediate car, you get one speedway car, and you get one backup car, just for everywhere. You know what I mean?
I don't think that.
Hold on.
It'd be different.
Hold on. I think it would be different. I think it would be different because you know who's going to make it be different? Your freaking owner is going to make it be different.
Yeah.
Your freaking owner is going to make it be different.
But
because he's not going to spend that. He's not going to go down that road and spend that money.
But if you're Joey,
but I don't want to go back there. I don't.
Yeah.
That's not. Yeah. Believe me, I do not want to go back to that time. But what I'm saying is, there are. I don't see. I watched. Did you watch? So last night on Fox. They had the 86 Richmond race. with Daryl and
Earnhardt.
Okay, when they wrecked each other.
Yeah.
When Earnhardt wrecked Daryl. Okay.
Yep.
They ran.
You like that one?
Yeah, shoot, yeah. But my point is this: they ran 60 laps. They bumped, they grind, they did, boom, they raced. 60 friggin' laps. 60 damn laps. When's the last time you saw a race for 60 laps between two cars? When's the last time? You know what I'm saying? 60 freaking.
I get pissed off somebody racing me for
4 laps. I know. They raced 60 laps.
Yeah.
And they gave each other room, and they would get out of shape, and they'd come back, and they'd do this stuff. And I look at that, and I'm like, no wonder fans say, there's only 2 of them. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But that's a race, man. And I'd go to Stafford and watch 2 cars run like that all night long. I don't care if there's anybody else on the racetrack. I go to Concord or Caraway or wherever you want to go and watch that kind of race. So the racing has changed. And this is swerve or die. I've changed. I understand why you race that way.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I can appreciate why Joey races that way and you race that way and Kyle Larson races that way. It doesn't mean I have to like it. It doesn't mean that I have to say that that's the way it should be, but that's the way it is. That's the way it is. And I think that you can't go back, and I don't want to go back. By God, I don't want you guys to go back and have to drive those cars we drove and have to hit the walls we hit and the things. But safety and having that back to your deal, having that concept that nothing can happen. That everything is going to be good.
Yeah, you can stuff it in the fence and you're going to just shake it off.
Yeah, that's that plays a little bit with your head too.
And I think let me re-rack it. Let me get all the balls back in the little framer here, because we are down as a sport to a position where the guy that's second in points has the potential to be outside looking in.
Yeah,
because a win is that important. Right. So, and you change tires for him every week. So has there been an instance where Ryan could have put himself in a better position to win if he used the bumper and not race somebody?
Yeah, absolutely. You look at Indy, right? You could have shipped the 8 car.
Right.
You shouldn't get to him. But, you look back at a full season, a full scope, and you look at everything that you left on the table.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is, and I hear a lot of people, well, will they change the sport? Will they do No. This is how it is. You got to win to get in. I hope that we win and 3 other guys win, and then we see who's left
better
in
points. Right.
Like that, it's so competitive this year, and we've needed that. Like you said, even when you watch, Dale and Daryl, they might have only been 2 of them.
That's right.
Now there's 22 of them all racing, or 40.
That's right.
Does it give you pause with the 12 and with Blaney, knowing that you've got Richmond, which is a track that he has said in the past that he doesn't like? You've got Watkins Glen, and then you've got Daytona.
He should have won Daytona. Like he shouldn't have won Daytona. He had the move to win Daytona, and Austin plugged him in the fence. Daytona 500. But Richmond, yes, hasn't been great there. He was okay in the spring, and that's where he got discovered. But you're in it. If you get in this deal hoping for an easy ride at the Cup level, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, because this is I want to see this. I want to see this is that time for Blaney to shine. Like if he's gonna be that next up and coming guy at Penske, right now, go out there. Get the win.
Let me be the one to say, Penske is the 3rd or 4th dog at the bowl in terms of competitiveness as of late.
Yes.
I don't foresee the 12 being as strong as the 19, the 11, the 23, even the 45.
The good thing for us is that the 19, when the Toyotas are
18.
fast, is usually the 4th or 5th fastest. So that's the good thing for us. But you're also worried about a lot of other people.
Yeah.
The whole field, right?
Yeah.
The 4 car was everybody forgot about Kevin Harvick.
Yes.
Which we were saying earlier in the season that, Kevin and Rodney, do they still have it? Like they haven't won since fall of 2020.
Let me ask you this. Over the last 2 years, who has the most speed and is the best car at super speedways?
The 12.
Who else?
Noticeably.
Who else? The 23.
Oh, yeah.
The 23. Freaking good.
Yeah. And always find one Talladega, even though it rained short, he put himself in position to win the race.
So, and was he too hard on himself this week?
Yes. I texted him after the race. I said, Bubba, you were a badass all weekend. On the pole, good in practice. You've run second.
Yeah.
Rewind 2 months ago, you're popping champagne bottles running second.
3 champions he's racing against.
Yeah. Here's and look, so I'm going to ask you this, and I'm sorry, because I think he got beat for one reason only, and I'll go back to it, is let's go back to Atlanta and you. I hate to bring that up.
That's okay.
No, because you ran a hell of a race all freaking day long and put yourself in that position. But when you only put yourself in that position 1 out of 36 races, you learn something.
Yeah.
So next time in that position,
it'll be a different outcome.
That's right. Bubba got beat because of experience. He got beat because of his inexperience of being in position to look at a win.
Yeah.
The more wins you get a chance to look at, the more times you're gonna bust through there and win.
No doubt.
And that is the whole point. That's why Bubba shouldn't be hard on himself. He should look at that and say, I learned something.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm golden now. You put me in that same position, I'm not going to do what I did with Kyle Larson. I'm not going to do what I did with Joey Logano. I learned something. And maybe he comes out the winner. Maybe he doesn't. But he does something different. Now, if we put Bubba in that position again, and he does the same thing, shame on Bubba.
Yeah, right.
Because he didn't learn anything. Yeah. But I think that's the whole point, is he got beat by inexperience, not by speed, not by car. I mean, listen, saw Matt Kenseth outdrive Casey Kane. Casey Kane had a car that was a half second faster, and Matt Kenseth won the race. And it's like, how did that happen? Chase Elliott up at Dover.
Let the 18 roll right by.
I mean, just got beat. Inexperience. Yep. That's all you can say. You didn't get outrun. You got beat by inexperience. Yep. And that's what happened to Bubba. And you need to put it in that category and move forward, not be hard on yourself.
One of my favorite Jeff Gluck 12 questions is, if somebody had an envelope and handed it to you, if there was a date written on it, whether it was your last race or your last win, would you open it and know when your last race and or win is? So my question is, if somebody handed Kevin Harvick that envelope, was Michigan his last win as a Cup driver? 65 wins since 2020, since he won last time. But that still wasn't his career longest winless streak.
Yeah.
His longest career winless streak was 115 races. Also an absurd stat, he's 10th on the all-time win list with 2 over 50 race winless streaks.
Wow.
Listen, so I did a thing with Nate yesterday, and this was interesting. And he had an interesting comment. And I've not seen it anywhere else, but Nate had this quote, and I'm not going to get it right, so I'm going to have to paraphrase it. Basically, Nate asked him if that played on his mind. You know, did you ever think you weren't going to win again? Did you ever think did that play on your mind? And he told Nate, he said, I came into this sport in the shadow of the death of Dale Earnhardt Sr. I got in his car with his crew, and I had to go out and run and perform. Everything from there is easy. Everything from there is easy. If I go for 3 years and don't win a race, if I go for 10 years, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy because he doesn't feel that, because he had that much pressure on him in the very beginning. And I found that amazing, but that's back to Kevin being strong too. Oh, yeah. He's just a strong person.
I also wonder if you ask him that question 10 years after he's retired.
Yeah.
If he answers it the same. Like now, you've got, like, you have to have that confidence right now that I can still win.
Yeah.
But 10 years from now, he could say, it crept in there a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he's been in position to win races. He was in position to win Richmond. They had a terrible day on pit road, right? And the 11 car beat him. He's got a stronger team now. They've made the adjustments. And, you know, Kevin Harvick could win this championship. Those guys that's a strong team. Like, they're a stronger team right now than the 18, and everybody's going crazy because they don't know where Kyle's going to be.
I mean, everybody's
they're writing Kevin Harvick off like he's washed up.
So here's the thing, and Kevin said it, and really I'd paid no attention to it. In position to win New Hampshire. He was running 3rd or 4th at Pocono when Denny and Ross got together. Okay, not much at Indy, but I don't consider Kevin much of a road racer. You know, when you get into it, it's just not been his forte. He's a good road racer, but he's not that level. And then he comes up there. And I think if you look at that and you say, they're like Bubba. They were non-existent for the first 15, 20 races of the season. Last 4 or 5 races, they've showed up. I think that makes Kevin and Rodney an extremely dangerous team because nobody knows what they can do. because you haven't seen. I know what Chase is going to do.
Yeah.
You know, I know what Denny's probably going to do. You know, we've seen them. They've showed us their stuff. But that makes – and listen, you don't have to win in that first round. You don't really have to win in that second round. And if one thing Kevin and Rodney do, they're blue collar. They grind it out. Yeah. They'll take a 15th place car and run 9th with it. You know, they'll take a 9th place car and run 6th with it. And they'll just point you. And that's all you got to do in those first 2 rounds.
Well, we're going to Darlington, Bristol.
Yeah.
What's the third track in the first round? Kansas. So, I mean, wins at all 3 of those places.
Fords are notoriously good at holding their, keeping their cards close to their chest before the playoffs and being stronger in the playoffs.
What was the season that, he, in the playoffs, he just was there and then he had the walk-off? Like, they dubbed it the walk-off wins.
It was a
Dang,
won
when
championship,
was that?
maybe, I don't know.
Is that 14?
14, 15.
Was it?
I think it was like 14.
14, yeah, maybe.
That car with the Budweiser can on the side was one of my all-time
But it was
favorites.
just one of those things, like, you were counting them out, and then, boom, they got the win when they needed it.
I got an interesting question, KP, because you were through the transition of bias ply tires to radial tires. I feel like the change of the tires we had last year, the same ones Xfinity cars still race on, but the transition from those to the current tires we have are a similar step from bias plies because the sidewalls have less compliance with being shorter. How was the guys when that transition was early 90s?
Terrible.
But did the younger guys take to it quicker than the older guys?
Yes. Yeah, younger, the more inexperienced drivers took to the radials quicker than the experienced drivers. Listen, Bill Elliott broke his wrist at Daytona, if you guys remember. Because you couldn't feel when a radial went flat because the sidewalls would hold. They were stiff enough that they would hold. And the centrifugal force would keep the belt spun.
Right.
So it was up.
Yeah.
But as soon as you leaned on it, there was nothing in it.
Right.
And you couldn't tell when a tire went flat. And that was the problems with the radials to begin with. And the other thing was, and I go back to watching that race at Richmond last night, Earnhardt, Elliott, all those guys were used to running half hung out.
Mm-hmm.
So you're laying on that sidewall. You're laying on that right rear. You're just smoking it, You watch those old races at Darlington and Bristol, and they're just smoke a right rear all night long. You couldn't a radial, and here's the way that the Goodyear engineers explained it to us. The radials of the time, with the sidewalls of that time, were a single directional tire.
Mm-hmm.
They went that way. They couldn't go this way.
Yeah.
Where a bias ply, the way they were made, you could lean on them. So the sidewall may be facing this way. Okay, that's an exaggeration.
Right.
But the tread was still, it was digging. You couldn't do that with a bias, with a radial.
Right.
And there were a lot of guys that took themselves out of races. The same thing that we see with you guys. You're there, snap.
Gone.
It's gone. It's got. There's no catch.
Yeah, it's a razor edge of grip with the way
That's
the
a great
diffuser
point, man.
is and the tires are. So I think it's so much as Harvick, like, he has 21 years of notes off of current Cup cars from Gen 4 to the one we have now, and it's him unlearning all the things that has made him 10th on the all-time win list to learn a completely different car. Where, on the flip side, Ty Gibbs don't know nothing from nothing.
Nothing.
Right? He gets in there and hauls ass, and he's going to pick up the field quicker than what Kevin Harvick has to unlearn and then learn again.
That's right.
Here's what Kevin Harvick has learned, and he showed this weekend, though. Once he figures the car out, put him in a position where there's a restart.
Bro.
Checkered flags in the way, where you have to race him, and that racecraft, putting himself
Blood
in position.
In the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Blood in the water.
But that, listen, for me, so I will say this. The King always had a saying, okay? And Kevin is a good example, is there are drivers that can go fast and there's drivers that can race.
Yep.
But there's fewer drivers that can race than drivers that can go fast. But if you find one that can do both, you got you something. You know what I mean? Kevin has a racecraft. And Kevin's at an age, we talked this a minute ago about from when do you, an older driver, where do you get to that place? Older drivers, in a lot of ways, become pitchers. Okay? So, and what I mean by that is, so Ty Gibbs comes into the sport. Okay? Corey LaJoie comes into the sport. Man, they're throwing smoke. They got a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. They're throwing smoke. Well, Kevin, he's got a change up.
I'm more of an ethos guy.
but you know what I mean.
40-mile-an-hour guy.
But he's got a change up. He's got a curve.
Yeah.
He's got a sinker. I mean, he's got a whole bag.
Yeah. And his fastball is only 89.
89.
Yeah.
But he's a pitcher. He's a pitcher, and he knows what to throw at you.
Yeah.
When he needs to throw that, and he knows what to throw at you.
He
and there's a difference. He doesn't just go all the time.
He didn't throw Bubba fastball.
No.
Right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Old savvy veteran.
That's exactly. I mean, listen, and you see it, and I go back to your dad because your dad was a hell of a race car driver. If you watch that and learn from that, then good on you if you're a young driver. If you watch that and don't take that away from it, then that's bad for you. Then you're off the list. You know what I mean? Because somebody is watching it. Somebody's watching it somewhere down the line.
Headed to Richmond, ladies and gentlemen, for the Federated Auto Parts 400 Sunday, 3 p.m. only on USA. Joined by Richmond winner himself. He was talking about the 86 Richmond race where Dale wrecked Darrell, and you were.
I was fifth.
The beneficiary.
I was the beneficiary. Ruttman wrecked and somebody. So Ruttman wrecked and so did Bodine. So I saw that rundown last night, and it was I won. God, I can't remember who ran second.
7-Eleven car, wasn't it?
Yes. But Bobby Allison was in the top 5. I mean, it was just nothing but legends in the top 5, and I was the winner. And I'm like, how the heck did that happen?
Hell
You
yeah.
know. I mean, that was cool. Just watching that one piece last night to see who run in the top 5. It's like I ran a top 5 race with Bobby Allison. Man.
Gosh,
And that was a 7 car, right?
That was a 7 car. Yeah, that was a 7. That was good.
Hell yeah.
That was good, man. That was a 7 car.
Rekindle some magic. So we asked 2 questions to all of our guests. But we've had so much good stuff with you, I almost damn forgot,
Okay.
KP.
All right.
Number 1, what's the most embarrassed you've ever been at a racetrack? Whether it's in the car, out of the car.
Okay, so probably the most embarrassed I've ever been is I wrecked at Talladega, and had a compound fracture in my left femur. Okay.
Yikes.
And so they take me into the infield care center, and I had on a white uniform, and so they lay me on the thing there, and the nurses are there. There's 3 or 4 nurses. There's a doctor, and they're like, "We're gonna cut your uniform off." And I'm like, "Don't cut my uniform off."
You're not wearing drawers.
No drawers. No drawers. Buck ass naked. Buck ass naked. They rip it, and I'm like, "That's all you got, dude. That's all I got right there."
Two bones.
I got 2 bones sticking out right here. Right here. You know what I mean? I got 2. Sorry. I know this is not PC. I apologize, but there. Take one. So that's probably it.
And then, all right, love that answer. Question number 2: if you had to pick one race car and one racetrack to race at the rest of your life, what do you go with?
Oh my gosh, man, that's a simple one. Think about it. The only place I could ever win a race was with that Mellow Yellow car at Rockingham, and that's just, man, we fell into something there that was just magical.
Yeah.
Man, for like 5 races. Listen, I all but lapped the field on 7 cylinders with one of them, and lost that race because they had so many cautions you couldn't get going on a restart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But 50 laps into a run, you were the fastest car on a racetrack. So I'd say Rockingham with the Mellow Yellow car.
What year would that have been?
I've been 92, 93, right along in there.
It wouldn't be a bass boat at Darlington?
No, listen, that stadium bass fishing is still the greatest thing in the world. I'm telling you, think about it, man. You fill that up, you fill the grandstands up, there's people out there fishing. Whew, that's all that place is good for, man. That's all that place is good for.
I've left there many a night just thinking about, I wish that place was a stadium bass fishing.
Listen, they used to have T-shirts. They used to have shirts that said "Too tough to tame," and I got so pissed off at the place. I had T-shirts printed up that said "Too cheap to pave," and wore them for a long time, man. They get mad at me every time I'd show up with them because I'm like, "Just pave the place, man. Just pave it."
Hey, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. Are you getting a cut off that T-shirt, the Dirty Mud Motor?
Oh yes, we are, man. Yeah. He put me in on that deal. I'm like, he was like, I said this, and I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And he's like, are you okay? I'm like, come on, dude. I'm good.
Send it to the Victory Junction
stuff
game.
like that doesn't bother me. That's water off a duck's back. So he's like, we're going to make a T-shirt. I said, I'm even better. Just send me a couple of them. He said, I'll send you a couple of them, and we'll work something out. I said, I'm good, dude. So it's fun.
I'm glad you said that 42 Mellow Yellow car.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is my childhood.
Yeah.
Like I had that model made. Like I made the model, and I drank so much Mountain Dew. Like that was my car.
That's it, man.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it, dude.
And a couple of years ago, we got to recreate that when Kyle Larson.
Oh, that was great, man.
Yeah.
That car looked great, man.
It did.
It was freaking amazing.
He had the wig
man.
and everything. It was cool. Yeah.
I don't. I wouldn't even need a wig.
But
man.
it's crazy, and you do a lot. You do a lot, and I know we got to get off here. But you do a lot with your paint schemes and stuff. I am still fascinated by that era that you can go back and paint any car with the paint schemes that Earnhardt had, that Darrell Waltrip had, that Ricky Rudd had, that Bill Elliott, and they look as good today as they looked then. It's a crazy era in the sport when the designs were pretty cool stuff.
No doubt. You guys listen to this. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did having Kyle Petty on the show. What a great episode. A lot of great stuff. Make sure you go get Swerve or Die at any bookstore near you, and it might be signed.
It might be signed, man.
Did I read that you're going to do an audiobook of it too?
Oh, I did an audiobook.
You did an audiobook?
That's the hardest thing I've ever done. No joke. To stand in a room and read that book. It reminded me of being in the third grade and having to stand in the closet and read to the teacher because I hated school, man. I hated school.
But you know what? Listening to the stories that you were telling earlier in the show, like I'd listen to the audiobook.
Yes.
Yeah, I did the audiobook. So
no doubt.
It's there.
But all right, guys, as always, like, star, review, all the good things so we keep this thing on the road. And we will talk to y'all next week. There will be a Spare Change episode this weekend. Make sure you tune into that. And as always, thank you for stacking pennies.